This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Brandon Andrus Green.
Welcome to the Good Neighbor Podcast Live. Most people care about children and families involved in foster care, but caring becomes powerful when someone is invited to step closer. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing your good neighbor, Chris Campbell with the 111 Project. Chris is a fifth-generation Oklahoman, a husband of 25 years, and a father of 5. But in his own words, he's ultimately just a regular guy who is invited to care about children and families in foster care. And that invitation changed his life. Now he helps mobilize churches and communities to better support children and at-risk families. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Dude, honored to be here, Brandon. Thanks so much, man.
We're honored to have you here. And we're so excited to learn all about you and the 111 Project and how your team helps ordinary people turn compassion into action. Will you tell us a little bit about the 111 Project and kind of the heart behind your organization?
Yeah, Brandon, we've been around since 2011, and ultimately the founders of 111, there was a group of folks who recognized the faith community and really the community at large wasn't really involved in the foster care work or space. It was mainly kind of abdicated to the government people, right? The professionals. And so they realized there was a need in our state, just like in many states, to involve the community more in advocating for kids involved in the foster care work. And so 111 was created not long ago, about 2011 in Oklahoma, to really advocate for the need for more foster families is where we started, recognizing that we don't have enough homes and most states don't have enough foster homes needed for every community.
And so what does 111 even mean?
Yeah, so our history of the ones is that specifically in the faith community, what we recognize in most states, there's more faith communities than there are kids in foster care. And so specifically in Oklahoma, we have 6,200 churches and right around 6,000 kids in care at any given time. So the 111s, the idea is if every church, one church would recruit one family for one child, we would actually have more than enough homes needed in any given time. And so something that seems really complicated and really seems like insurmountable is really something that can be simply solved when you get enough people engaged in the work. And so our heart is to recruit churches, to recruit and support foster families in the state of Oklahoma. But we also realize as we've matured over the years that this is more complicated, right? We need the right kind of homes for kids, maybe with unique needs, or maybe there's multiple siblings and not every home is equipped or has the space to take in more than one child. And so it does get complicated. But also one of the really beautiful opportunities is actually supporting families and children so those children never have to enter foster care in the first place. And so if we're looking to try to fix the ratios, right, one family for one child, one of the things that we can do is actually lower the amount of kids in foster care. And so we really advocate for good work in that space. Because nobody's wanting more children to enter the foster care system in the first place. And so what can we do upstream to prevent kids having to be involved with the system at all, right?
And how's that been?
It's actually been one of the most fun parts of our work. I think in every community, there's families who are really trying, but oftentimes the system, the confidentiality, the difficulties, the legal stuff associated with things makes that complicated. And so one of our platforms that we use is a web-based tool called Care Portal. And we have set up Care Portal in Oklahoma. It's available in other states. but it really allows those who know the needs of children and families to connect with those in the community that want to help. And so that's one of the other big programs of 111 Project that we facilitate here in Oklahoma at the Care Portal.
And will you go in a little deeper and help explain what exactly the Care Portal is?
Yeah, absolutely. So on a regular day of the week, we're meeting with churches and community partners to really advocate for foster care. But what's really great about Care Portal is we recognize that there's other organizations that are connected, maybe not directly to the foster care system, but can contribute to the foster care system. And one of the greatest examples of this is the schools, right? So children are involved in their local school system, and maybe something happens with their family or some abuse happens in their home. And so the first line of defense that actually could really support children is their school. And it's oftentimes where we find other families that know these children, that can wrap around these children, maybe even foster these children, ideally, so that that child can stay in their school system or could be supported in their school system so that they never even have to enter foster care in the first place. So what we do as an organization is we look for all those different partners. We give them the ability on Care Portal to make requests on behalf of children and families based on a need that they know that's vetted. So maybe it's a rent assistance. So one of our partners this last week, they had a mom who, because of some health issues, was not able to make her rent, which was leading to an eviction. Well, that mom had 6 children in her home.
Jeez.
Right? So from the foster care perspective, if those dominoes continue to fall, mom potentially could have some child welfare involvement, not directly because of her being homeless, but because of all the ancillary things that could come from her being homeless, right? And so why don't we support that mom then, right? And sometimes the school is the one who knows about that need first, but sometimes that need's popping up because of child welfare being involved, right? They're trying to get those children back with mom, who maybe has recovered from some addiction. And so she's making great progress with her sobriety, but she needs some help with housing or needs some household items, right? That could really be beneficial, like cookware, right? Like, so mom wants to really provide for her kids, but all of us know the cost associated with setting up a household can take some time to get all the things that you need. And so Care Portal presents some of those opportunities that the agency partners know about because they're working with these families, and they give any normal person in the community a chance to jump in and either donate some of the cookware that they don't need anymore, or go buy, some dishes and some items that then through the agency can be given directly to the family.
And what's the general reception been? How have churches and the community at large received this concept?
Yeah, I think in line with your hope of your podcast here is there's actually more good in the world than we think there is. And that actually is the big encouragement, and the seat that I get to sit in is daily. I get to see children and families helped by the community, like strangers giving extravagantly to giving simple gifts of $20, $30 that are directly going to help families on a day-to-day basis. And so in Oklahoma, we reached a height of almost 12,000 kids in foster care back in 2015. That was actually the year that 111 Project started Care Portal, was in 2015. We brought Care Portal to the state of Oklahoma. And since 2015, we've seen a reduction of the amount of children in foster care down to under 6,000 kids. And we can give a lot of credit to the community and their participation in Care Portal, because we've helped kids stay out of foster care. We've helped kids get back to their families faster. And we've helped support those families that are fostering or adopting children, and helping make life easier for them, whether it be a wheelchair because they're trying to adopt a child that has some special needs, to, that grandma who's caring for their grandkids. And we would much rather do the things necessary to support grandma than load those kids up and put them with a stranger, even though it may be a good home. I think every kid would rather be with their family when and if we can make that happen. And so everything in between, to even the things that maybe there's not a connection opportunity, but we know, everybody knows in the system that this is helpful for the child's healing journey. So one example, that I would give is we had a young lady that had fled foster care. She actually ran away from her foster home, got involved in sex trafficking, but then got rescued. But then she had to go back into foster care. And while she was visiting with some of her caseworkers, she had actually been tattooed up by some of her abusers while she was being trafficked. And they had put her initials on her arm. And in one of her counseling appointments, she just simply said, the best thing, the thing I wish could happen is I wish I could get their names off my arms, right? I wish I could get those initials off my arms. And so one of the workers reached out to us and said, hey, we don't have a bucket of money for this, but would you guys ever be okay with us putting a tattoo removal request on Care Portal? And we're like, absolutely. If that's what that young youth needs, I think that community would care about that. And Brandon, within 36 hours, our local churches and community partners had raised the $1,500 to start that treatment. Right?
Wow.
Get those tattoos off her arm. And so one of the challenges in the social service sector is we have all these grants and we have all these buckets of money and they're restricted to this, that, and the other. And sometimes that's helpful for integrity and intention and purpose, but also sometimes it helps and it hamstrings the folks that are really trying to help our children and families because it's not what they need right now, right? And so one of the beautiful things I love about Care Portal is it's not restricted. We trust the professionals to tell us, hey, what does your families need the most right now? And how do we bring resources to them instead of them having to navigate the world in their crisis and go find the resources that may not even be helpful to them after they spend hours filling out applications or whatever the other thing is. And so that's the big work that we do is how do we mobilize a network of care, of both financial resources, but relationships too, that can really lean into the space of foster care. And we believe it can change it.
It's amazing. Also, I noticed, Chris, that you describe yourself as a regular guy who is invited to care about children and families in foster care. I'm curious, what was that invitation? And maybe tell us, how did it change your life?
Yeah. So if you looked at my resume, you might think that I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm a music major. I studied music. I like to sing and realized I didn't want to make a career out of that. And then I worked at a local ice cream plant, in the warehouse for a little while. And then I eventually got into some business and we had some businesses and started some different things. But then I had an opportunity to serve at a church. And so I was a pastor for a season and now I'm running a nonprofit, right? Like it's kind of a wild mixed bag of skills and abilities, right? But I had an invitation from one of my really good friends who said, hey, and this was why I was a church leader. I was serving at a local church in a staff position. And she said, hey, I want you to come down to this children's shelter that we had in our city. And Brandon, I was ignorant of it. I didn't know we had kids there. And I volunteered at the shelter. The first day that I volunteered, I got handed a 2-day-old baby in the state of Oklahoma that there was no home available for this baby anywhere in the state. And that was my moment, right? That was the moment that I kind of was awakened that this is unacceptable. As a church leader, as a community member, why? I mean, I probably had some strong expletives as a pastor, right? that why is this a reality for us in our state? And so that really was my invitation to get involved. It was a friend that just said, hey, I think you need to know about this and come with me. I'm volunteering here. Which then led me to get more involved and kind of get my eyes open. And Brandon, that was 10, 15 years ago. And now I'm highly involved, right? I'm in text messaging friendship with a lot of our child welfare leaders and community nonprofit partners, but I don't have a degree in psychology. I'm not a counselor or social worker. I'm just a normal dude who said, okay, I'm just going to keep on asking questions, to learn, and be educated, and then look for ways that I can help as a normal guy. And then, actually it would be better if I could help find more people to help, And so one of the things that sometimes people are surprised, like I don't personally foster, because one of the reasons I don't foster is I'm trying to recruit more people to foster. And I feel like I can do that better and more effectively when I'm not fostering. And so that connecting role is a role that I think anybody can do, and so connecting people to these epicenters of need and opportunities to serve with wonderful organizations, nonprofits, partners. There's so many opportunities out there that just people don't know about, or they're intimidated by stepping into because they don't feel qualified. And I would just say, man, like, let's get that off your chest and lean in, because you really could be helpful.
Yeah, it's impactful. And Chris, what's one thing you want our listeners to really remember about children and families involved in foster care?
Yeah. So as I got involved, I think, all of us unpack our stories over time. And especially as we start getting a little gray in our beards, maybe we become a little more reflective, right? And I look back at my story and recognize that there was a couple of pivotal moments, even in my own family's life, where if some decisions or actions were different, I probably could have bumped up to a different reality. And so I think the reality that all of us, without connection, without support, are maybe a few decisions away or life circumstances away from having a hard experience. And so I think the community at times can cast a little too much judgment on the reality of children and families that are involved. But also, just because somebody hasn't had an addiction, or even made some bad decisions, doesn't keep them away from redemption and restoration. And there's pathways for that. And so we see it all the time, of even in abuse and neglect, families restored and reconciliation. But when that's not possible, when the adults don't make those choices, man, we want to care for kids. And I'm just passionate about that kids don't need to be in institutions. They need to be in families. And so we need more good families. We need more people that are willing to say, hey, I got a little extra. I don't think love is a commodity that runs out, and so
Right.
We got extra love, we got extra capacity, we got extra space. And maybe we don't feel like we're completely adequate or trained, to step in. Well, let's get you there, right? What are the experiences that you need to be equipped? And I just feel like that's what we want to be about, is helping develop people into deeper levels of engagement. And when you have experiences and wisdom, that's really what negates fear, is, exposure and understanding to the right kind of things that make you feel more comfortable with stepping into harder things.
And Chris, how can listeners learn more, maybe connect with the 111 project and get involved?
Yeah. So I would ask questions first. If somebody's not willing to answer your questions, that's probably not a great place to start, So, like, look for those folks that are open to your curiosity. And then I would say, like, keep on being curious, right? Why is this? Where is this? Who handles this? Right? So in your community, when a child is subjected to some abuse and neglect, who's responsible? Is that a nonprofit? Is that a government agency? Or is it no one? And what should your church or community organization do about that, right? What can you do? And that may be starting out in some kind of what seems small kind of effort. But it could be something that develops into a lifelong calling as well. And so ask questions, and then look for the helpers that are already helping in your community, right? And I think a lot of us recognize we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes we can create things that compete with existing and actually hurt the existing. If we kind of dropped our egos at the door and just volunteered, even if it's not perfect, with that local child welfare office or that local nonprofit that's really just trying to help, man, your energy, your expertise, your connections could really be the catalyst to make it better.
It's amazing. Well, Chris, I really appreciate you being on the show, and I wish you and the 111 project the best moving forward.
Love it. Thanks so much, Brandon.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnptulsa.com. That's gnptulsa.com. Or call 918-301-6356.